So, welcome. Today we are talking about teens. And this is a very interesting topic for me to bring forward right now. I often am just dictated with the choices of topics based on, obviously, because we want to meet your needs, right? Based on what surfaces around my life. And I have two incredibly beautiful teens. And so there's been a lot of talk about that in my life lately. And my daughter is preparing to actually have a show on Co-Creator with another co-host here, for teens, by teens and for teens, to help address some of the issues that she's noticed in the school setting or around her peers as the teens are exploring the various energies and spirituality, and maybe not having the context that someone like my daughter would be growing up with, or people here listening to this show are supporting their children, their friends, in a greater understanding. And our world is moving towards a space of really needing to incorporate and normalize some of these elements that we talk about here on this show into all the aspects of our life. So as the weeks have passed and we've been working towards my daughter getting ready for her show and exploring what the teens need there. And then, of course, I have several friends with teen children as well. And I started to notice this sort of picking up of friends and people just talking about their teens or frustrated about it, even on some of the social networks, seeing somebody post something about the communication with their teen or whatever. And so I started to really look at my own relationship with them, with my own children. But really, this is not even just intended for parents, because as a society, we have reacted to teens for many generations. The adults and the children seem to have this reaction to teens in each generation that moves through. So even if you don't have an individual teen right in your life, by being in society, we come across them, and how we approach that, how we view that, is really an interesting insight into our own awakening. Because like every relationship, the teens that we face in our life are mirrors to us. So if we're being triggered, or we have certain feelings or expectations or struggles with or embracing and joys with teenagers, it's important for us to look at ourselves and to see what is being brought up in us so that we can work through that. So there's a couple things that I want to talk to you about today. And one is that sort of idea of how we view teens, what that adolescent period of time is, why so many people find it frightening, why so many adults find it frightening. Maybe some of the teens are too, but why so many adults find that period frightening, and how we can actually move the lessons that we've been focusing on, the exploration of learning to love unconditionally, into all areas of our life. And so today, starting with teens, I'm actually thinking that I'm going to start to address the various different relationships. I focused a lot on romantic relationships and unconditional love over the years. But I think that it's really important for us to expand and to see how every relationship is actually a mirror or a working ground for us to explore unconditional love. But the other aspect that I want to talk about, that I'm going to just start with, is sort of the teens in a society and the general trend of what we're seeing with this next generation that is coming forward. And every generation has looked back at the teens and had some sort of feeling about the teens. And if you listen, and in fact, to take this to the other end of the spectrum, I was talking to my mother, who actually works with she works with a lot of parents and children. And so she works with the younger children, but she was talking about people in her, so she has a lot of younger people that she comes across, and they were talking about the teens in their life. and the fears that they have about the social media and that they're not going to be able to communicate anymore and all these things that she was listing. And I said, Mom, they were saying that about my generation a year, one generation ago. Every generation has typically turned back to the generation coming up and thought that something had shifted and that it wasn't going to be okay. So why do we do that? And one of the first things is to let's just get an insight of what is happening with each generation that comes through, because as a human race evolving, and that is what we're doing here. And the amazing thing is there's always been evolution since the beginning of time. We're at a point now where we are conscious of our evolution and consciously witnessing evolution at a very rapid rate and far enough into this process that we can actually see the patterns unfolding. So it's actually a very fruitful time in our ascension to be able to witness this transformation that's going on so rapidly. It's exciting and it's sometimes frightening to people. But the souls that are now teens right now, if you think about that, even the terms of indigo and the psychic children network and all of those concepts that came out, that was when these teens now were children, and they're raising their energy now as teens here with an active role in our society, and so many more people have awareness of it. So each generation, as an evolving race, each generation that comes through is meant to exceed us. So if we're as adults worried and uncomfortable sometimes at the next generation pushing the limits, then that's a good thing, because that means we're evolving. So one of the things that I've been lucky to be conscious of throughout the whole parenting of my children is I actually was a child and family therapist prior to becoming a mom, and I worked a lot with teens. So I actually went into parenting my children right from the start. I was preparing for the teen years and not bracing myself, but literally just realizing that from the moment the child is born, the moment the child exits the womb, our job is to launch them into the world, to nurture, to guide, and to continuously allow them to move away from us in some ways, to become more independent, to establish their own identity, and to move beyond us. So when I look at my career, and, I'm still very passionate about all the things that I want to share with the world and the insights I want to teach, but I'm just scratching the surface for the next generation, and then they will scratch the surface for the generation after them. So it's really important that when we notice that the generation of the teens that are in this world in each time, if we notice ourselves being a little bit uneasy with the shifts in them, that's okay, because it means that we're transforming. It means that we're changing. Now, I'm not saying that we're wanting people to be extremely disrespectful or to create, what each generation creates has everything to do with how we set that stage for them, how we prepare them, and what we can be as role models to them. So as we're role models, once again, it turns us to how can we become the clearest, most beautiful vessel to mirror back to them as they grow and nurture themselves. But we are looking at many, many old souls growing up now and entering the teen years. And we have hit a very pinnacle time in our world when things have shifted. So like I said, when I was born, there was very little talk of psychics. There was probably very little talk of even people going to counseling. So the whole emotional field, looking at our emotions, exploring that's come in my generation of really having that luxury to explore our emotions and to really get in tune with ourselves. The normalization of communication with the spirit world, of integration the integration of the various aspects in religions as we have had the internet and we've explored around the world different cultures, this generation is exposed already going into this to with some of the insights that were just not available to the generation before. So there's a greater awareness right from the start. There's television shows, as I've said before, are completely normalizing the communication with the spirit world and the exploration, the secret. This is a generation that's grown up with the secret, the idea of the law of attraction and all of that. So it's their turn and their opportunity to put into place all of these concepts that we've been exploring over the last several years. And so it is important for us to recognize that. And as we look at the teens, to see not only their developmental stage, which I do want to talk about today, but their souls, to look at each individual that we come across and not to group any group together, even though we need to do that to talk about this today for a minute, but to really take within that concept of a framework and look at the individuals and see the individual souls, because there's a whole beautiful array of old souls coming in, a very evolved souls coming in that have a new understanding and are teaching us in ways that our earth hasn't evolved into before. And then there's still some newer souls, the younger souls, still trying to explore themselves. So within the developmental stage, we've got all of these souls. So it's very important for us to look not only at the soul, but the person, both of them. So right now you have when you break it down to that, if you are, say, we're going to move into like personal relationships with teens. So kind of talking to parents or people who have a personal relationship with teens, just to bring this home a little bit more clearly. So if you have a teen in your life, a child in your life that is in this developmental stage, you've got the framework of what that developmental stage means to you, and then the remembrance of that soul. And one of the most incredible things that Mother Mary shared with me years ago is the concept of the Immaculate Conception, and that it's not about a virgin birth, it's about the Immaculate Conception. She held the Immaculate concept, the perfect conception of her son throughout his entire life, no matter what was happening to him. And by holding that space and seeing the perfection of his soul, no matter what his earth self did as he was developing, she created that womb for him to be the fullness of who he was and to express that into the world. So that is our primary role when we are a parent of a teen, is to remember that our job is to hold that Immaculate Conception. Now, we have a duality because we have to address behaviors, we have to guide, we have to support, we have to be in the dynamic of the relationship, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today, but also to be able to go back to that. Because once we hit a certain developmental stage and we have preconceived ideas, we think that teens are this, teens are that, teens are, disrespectful, teens are acting out, all of these things. When we hit that and we hit that developmental stage and we start to project that onto our children, we begin to create that. So first thing to remember is always turn back to that space. No matter what your day is like, return at least for 10 minutes of every day to that space where you go into meditation and you remember that perfect soul and you hold that imagery for that person in your life. And even when you see a child, a teen struggling in your life, even when you're in the dynamics of moving through that, to remember that, to have the ability to observe and to remember and to honor their soul at the very same time. Then the next step that I want you to think about is going in and seeing what I just said, that concept of what is your perception of teens? What have you taken on? And this is one of the tasks we have to do in every area of our life. So write a list out, and just write a list out of what you have heard people say about teens, what you think about teens. And I don't want you to get analytical at this point. I just want you to just start writing a quick list without really thinking about what maybe has been placed onto you about the teenage years and the role of a teen and the role of the adult in their life that you maybe have accepted without thinking about. And so then you start to expect and create that. And we've got a mirror that goes up, and then the teen sees that mirror and reflects it back. And we have this standstill pattern that is going on. So what I want you to do is just take that moment to think about what society passed on to you about what teens are like, and then go to the next page and write down some of the other aspects, some of the things you really believe about teens, like really get in tune with yourself at that point and really think about what the good aspects are, what really is happening with teens for you, so that you can clear that out a little bit. And then we need to remember that the teens in our life are our mirrors. And one of the reasons people have such a difficult time with the teens as a mirror is that what they're reflecting is actually, think about this, they're reflecting this incredible high-speed transformation that's not only emotional, it's actually physical. You're actually watching very rapidly your little child turn into an adult. And so this metamorphosis that's occurring, it's also a time when there's a tremendous amount of exploration of independence and freedom, discovery, sexuality, exploration, peer identity, all of these things that is occurring for them may be triggering some unhealed aspects of ourselves. So we need to always turn it back into ourselves and think about this. Is it difficult now as an adult to take risks? Are you sometimes afraid to allow yourself to transform as you're attempting to transform maybe on your spiritual development? Are you still choosing a career? Are you still trying to find yourself and trying to, or do you wish maybe you could take one career that you're passionate about, but are you settling for another one because society tells you that that's the safer, or your ego tells you that in order to provide, you must settle for this? So what sometimes happens is that the teens then mirror for us that pinnacle point that we're still facing every moment of our lives. Can we surrender? Can we be passionate? Can we choose life? What can we choose with life? And how do we create the life? Because really they're at a point of creation, right? They're creating that life in front of them. They're challenging what has been told to them, and they're discovering for themselves what they want to create. And aren't we in our spiritual unfolding in that point so often? So whenever a teen is reflecting something, we always have to turn back and see that as a mirror, just like we have to with any relationship. Every single thing that comes into our space, every single relationship that comes into our space is actually mirroring something for us. So when it feels good, it's mirroring something we like, maybe something we've mastered. When it's a struggle, it's mirroring something that we are ready to look at, ready to transform. And I have one example of this that a friend was so beautiful to share with me. Is I had a friend who was working on an issue with her son, and she kept saying, that he, trying to remember what it was, that he had these expectations that the world should, that he deserved to be given stuff. He just expected things and he didn't appreciate it. And, well, there's a couple things with that. We do kind of want to expect, we want our children to expect good things, right? We want that. Let's imagine the next generation expecting that all their needs are met so that they're free to create whatever they want. But appreciation, of course, appreciation for that as well. Well, the very same friend, of course, because we are all mirrors, she got onto another topic, and halfway through that other topic, she realized that she, in that one category of her life, was projecting those same issues of lack of appreciation. And as soon as she saw that, she of course was completely grateful and transformed, and then was able to draw out that gratitude in her child or her teen. So it's amazing how much when we turn ourselves in, we don't often want to look at ourselves. We want to say it's their issue. And when we can take that role of protection as being the adult, well, we're the adult, right? So it must be their issue. But when we step back and look at what it is that they're reflecting for us, we realize the beauty of that, and then we can come back in gratitude and approach them and share that with them. And the best thing that we can offer the teens in our life is to transform in front of them, to show them that life is continually about this transformation, and that we are continually growing and seeing and having new insights in ourselves. I think the other thing is that when we know ourselves, when we really know ourselves, and we are happy with ourselves, then we're projecting that mirror back, and we're making choices that feel very good to ourselves. And we're projecting that back into the teens in our life, that this is what adulthood is like. So it's also a great gift to our children, to the teens, if we do take that time to know ourselves and to feel joy in our lives. Have we looked at our life the way we want it? Have we made the choices in our lives that we want? Or is there something in our life that we want to change? If we're feeling very fulfilled in our career, fulfilled in our relationships, then this time of exploration that we see in teens around us, that developmental stage that they project, is going to actually be a very exciting time for us, because we're going to see that newness of life, that creation energy, that ability to take things on and to transform, that hope, that belief. So it's always turning back to ourselves. And that, again, when I say we're going to transform and think about unconditional love in every area of our life, that's what it always comes back down to. Can we take care of ourselves so that we can have a flow of love and appreciation for the people in our life when we don't think that they need to meet a need for ourselves, either now or in the future? What are some of the needs that we sometimes think a teen should meet for us? Maybe suddenly we think that they should help out around the house more than they did. And instead of just gently moving into that, we now have this expectation of them, and we're shifting that. I'm not saying they shouldn't help around the house. I'm just saying that when we shift our expectations and we realize that love is unconditional, and we just pour that out, and then we use the dynamics of each relationship to become more whole human beings, and to create that space for the other person in our lives to become more whole human beings. This is when the unconditional love begins to flow, and we feel safe to explore and experience that. And we start to look for the beauty and the good things in the people around us, and then we draw that out from them. Because if you think about it, when somebody thinks we're amazing, we tend to be amazing. So it's really important to turn inward and to remember that aspect, and to simply look for all the beauty. And when we're looking as a society at the next generation, can we shift our attention to look for the beauty in it? Do we need to look each generation and say, oh, this is the fault, oh, they're going to do this, or they're going to do that? Or can we look at this and say, this is the beauty, look at this world? Because to me, if the world that's in front of us is led by the teens in my life, then we have a pretty amazing future. So I'm going to leave that concept with you. I am going to go into this deeper on Sunday in a teleclass. If anyone's interested, I want to bring in a channeled message from the Divine Feminine about the teens, about the generation that is here with us now. I want to do a guided meditation that will allow you to go in and maybe work with your teen in the spiritual level, that concept that I said that the Mother Mary had expressed of the Immaculate Conception, to create a space where you can easily do that and return each night to that space and to hold that. and I want to answer questions and really get in there to see what's going on in your life, if you have a teen in your life, and how you can be there to love, support, and guide them, and to welcome this next generation, which is so amazing, and to learn from them as well as teach them. So that's all for today. I hope that there was something helpful in there for you, and have an amazing week. And just really, whether you have a teen in your life in the close proximity or not, even when you go to the mall or the store or the park, I want you to just take a moment, see what your reaction to having those teens around you is. Scan yourself, see what's being triggered, release it, find joy, and view them as one-on-one. Go up and say hello to someone, or even just from a distance, look for the good. Look for the good in them. Look to see what they're doing. Look to see the beauty of the next generation that's coming up, and let that wash over you, because when we embrace that, we call forth the most beautiful generation to lead us forward. Have an amazing week.